Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. And today we're wrapping up our whole series on thought work, because thought work is everything. Thought work's the needle in your life that moves you to where you want to go, or it keeps you hostage and where you don't want to be. Because if your thoughts don't change, your life won't change. You will always have what you think about, always. That's how it works. That's how your amygdala works, which is we call the fear center in your brain. That's the part of your brain that measures everything. Is it risky? Do we want to do this? It's the one that says, stop, don't do this. No. You know how that whole thing works. So we're going to be talking about thoughts today. We're going to be talking about how our brains and how they play, because sometimes they play dirty. Have you noticed that? They play dirty. And but it doesn't mean that we can't get on top of that. It's just like being out in the schoolyard. If you see a bully bullying a kid and you're the teacher or you're the parent on patrol, so to speak, they have the playground monitors or whatever, are you going to stop that, or are you just going to allow it? Of course you're going to stop it. Well, now I'm going to invite you today to stop the self-bullying that you've been doing to yourself with some really unhelpful thoughts that have beat you up, maybe for a lifetime. But I'm going to tell you what, when it comes to your life and what it is that you want, if you want something that you're not getting, you've got to be the boss of your thoughts. If you're not the boss of your thoughts, game off. Otherwise, your thoughts are going to take you down a road that you don't want to go. Total low vibe, totally not helpful. But nonetheless, this is the pattern, isn't it? Isn't it the pattern? And it puts into us this idea of helplessness, this idea of being a victim, this idea that we can't do anything about it. It's not true. So if you remember, and if you've been here this whole week, you'll remember one of the things that we did, and I believe it was on Tuesday, maybe on Wednesday. I'm not sure which day it was, but we had this discussion about naming our amygdala. In other words, stepping away from this idea of that we're just calling ourselves out all the time, and that we're always in this habitual pattern of name calling and bad thoughts and all of that. What happens is if we don't differentiate between our amygdala and our minds, is that we mix them all up together and we think we're just completely being held hostage by them. And what I want to do is, and I got this from this book, which is, I highly recommend. It's called A Liberated Mind. It's a big fat read, by the way, by Stephen Hayes. And in this book, he goes through, the subtitle I love, it's How to Pivot Toward What Matters. Because we do a lot of what doesn't matter. We think a lot of thoughts that don't matter, don't we? So we need to separate out this stuff that has held us back. And our thoughts oftentimes are controlled by our amygdala, the fear center that doesn't like any risk, that doesn't like any danger, that doesn't like anything that's not the same. Even if it sucks, even if it's the worst, even if it's the stuff that is just, it's constantly on repeat and it's part of our habitual thinking. Even though all of this is happening, we can still differentiate it out. We can still say, this is my mind and this is my amygdala. I've named my amygdala Amy. And the reason I have is just because of the spelling. And you can name your amygdala whatever you want. but sometimes we just need to tell our amygdalas to take a seat and to shut the heck up. Button your lip. We are done with you and your suggestions and your fear and your big baby. Stop it. Don't you just get tired of it? Right? Don't you just get exhausted by all of it? Of course you do. I mean, that's why you're here. That's why you're listening to this. We talked about naming it, and it's really important because then we differentiate between ourselves and our fear and the chatterbox that goes along with the fear. And when we do that, we're able to suss out the stuff that's no longer helpful. We no longer are going to play it safe by any stretch of the imagination, and we can start to finally differentiate between the things that are true and helpful and the things that aren't. The things that aren't, because we do this stay safe at any cost stuff because the amygdala is telling the rest of us what to do. It's not helpful. So today we're going to go a step deeper into this idea of thought work, because thought work, and remember on Thursday we talked about the thought ladder. We're going to go a step deeper into kind of the psychology of the thoughts and what we do and how we do them. I'm going to take you into my fantastical brain and share with you some of the unhelpful thoughts that I've had along the way. Because honestly, if I can do one thing, if I could make one thing helpful and use my example as something that might help you, then it was worth it. Otherwise, why share this stuff at all, really? Because I know you know what I'm talking about. So, and the other thing that I would say is that we have to remember that we allow our thoughts to imprint themselves into our brain as true, as right, as needing to be obeyed and followed. And that simply isn't true either. We'll go through all of that. But we want to find ourselves in the place of ditching unhelpful thoughts, of ditching limiting beliefs, and the consequent thoughts that come along with them, because that's the stuff that holds us away from and takes us away from the very thing that we want. Our thoughts are the things that are going to get us to the place that we want to go, or they're not. And that's what we're talking about here. Jackie, I'm glad you're here. Carol, nice to have you here. So we also, the things that we need to do is remember that our thoughts tell the story, and the story that they tell is the one that we allow them to tell. Think about that for a minute. You can't, because you never have, and therefore you never will, is something that, for example, something that we could do. They're the background noise when we're trying and attempting something different, right? You can't do that. Who do you think you are? You're too old for that. Have you done that one before? Oh, that's something for someone else, but not for you. Yeah, they can do that. You could never get away with that. The background noise, constant, the chit chat, beep, 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 beep. It's constant and it's going and it's la, 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 right there in your head. We allow for these thoughts. One of the things that I've been writing in my journal lately, which is I left upstairs, but I've been talking about these in my journal, the things that I allow, that I'm going to allow in my life, things I will not allow in my life, and what I'm available for and what I'm not available for. And I made a decision, and I wrote this in my journal, that I'm not available for thoughts that that don't help me. I'm not available for that anymore. I'm not available for old thoughts. I'm not allowing those old thoughts. And instead, I'm creating new ones, more empowering ones. And those thoughts will be helpful, will put me on my path to my goals, and will hold and sustain the life that I want to lead. Not the old stuff. The old stuff's already proven itself not to work, right? I don't need to live Groundhog Day. I need to figure out my way out of it. And therefore, the most important thing that I can do is take an honest assessment of what my thoughts are saying to me, how they're imprinting on me, and what story they're telling me. And if I'm not aware of it, then get aware of it. And you need to do that too. Be aware of them so that you can either tell them, yes, more of that, or no, shut up, take a seat. Better yet, don't even take a seat, leave. Not only leave, but go and never be seen from again. Jump off a cliff, light yourself on fire. We're done with you. You're a dumb thought. So, the availability of our own receptivity to these different thoughts is another thing to think about, right? Think about that. Am I available for those kind of thoughts? Am I receptive to this? Am I going to allow for it? I always think in terms, you guys, because I like to geek out on science and everything. I always think about in terms of cells, because cells are just little life forms unto themselves. And I think that they represent what our entire bodies are, right? If we have a sad, tired cell, we have a sad, tired body, right? One little cell, one great big body. But our cells are representative of what our bodies are. So what's the membrane of that cell? What can get into that cell? What can go out, right? Same with our thinking. What's the energy center like? The mitochondria, what's that about? Is it pumping and full of enthusiasm and excited about your life and about your body and about giving you the energy that you need? And think about your brain, as a cell. What are you allowing in? What are you allowing out? What kind of energy level do you have? Is it exciting? Is it anticipatory? Is it looking at life and just thinking, this is the vibrant life that I want to live? Or, oh my gosh, I'm just, Groundhog Daying it here again, So the allowing of thoughts, the availability of what we're available for and what we're not available for anymore gives you a definitive line in the sand. Yes or no. Yes or no. Because thoughts, it's rare that we have to create neutral thoughts. You learned that with our thought ladders, like this is where I am, this is where I want to be. And in the middle is kind of a neutral sort of an easier to grasp concept of the thought than say to the goal thought, right? So if you are here on this thought, let's say you want to lose 100 pounds, right? Let's say you're at that place of 100 pounds and you're saying, I am fit, I'm wearing a bikini, things are great, and I'm using extremes here, so just hold on with me. And you're going, yeah, well, that's a hard one to think about. The middle thought in here is that, your thought is that you're holding on to healthful concepts of how you need to be eating, how you need to be moving, and how you accept and you're available for that, and how you're allowing for that in your life, and you're allowing also for the journey, you're allowing for the process, and that you're seeing yourself as having a mindset that is supportive of that goal. And then, of course, your goal here, man, I lost 100 pounds. Look at me walk into this room 1 year later, seeing your future self, right? You got me? So this is just to allow for the process of. So when we make the decision to pay attention to things, and we're saying to ourselves and choosing different thoughts when we find ourselves in those endless negative thought loops that no longer serve us, we find a new way. We find a new path, and we create that ourselves, believe it or not. We get to do that. What a privilege. What an awe-inspiring thing to be able to do, that you can completely rewire this whole thing and create a different pathway entirely. So we've all been taught about Mean Girls, but we saw the movie with our daughters, maybe, But what if the mean girl is you? What if you're your own mean girl and you have this endless put down thing? And I went through and wrote down some of the things that I used to say to myself, and some things that I find some thoughts that I find popping up every once in a while. Now, the ones that I'm going to tell you about this is from 100 years ago. And every once in a while, something like this pops up, and I immediately put it down. The thing that I want you to take away from this is that when you become aware of your thoughts, the incongruity of what you want and the thought that you're now thinking becomes completely obvious. It doesn't just play in the background like it usually does. It suddenly presents itself, and it's just like, what are you doing here? You are completely incongruent from what it is that I want. You have no business being here. it sticks out like a sore thumb. It sticks out way more than it ever did. But previous to that, previous to being um, plugged into what your thoughts are, you might have this mean girl thing going, and it looks something like this. Oh my God, look at your thighs. You got to lose some weight. And then you say your name. Your hair is a mess. You're a hot mess. You're wearing that. Are you kidding me? I can't wear that. You can't wear that. Stop wearing that. Those are too tight. What are you wearing that for? You look fat. I look fat. I'm fat. I look ugly. Oh my gosh, I feel so ugly. Look at your hair. Look at your teeth. Look at your skin. Anyone ever do any of this stuff? It's just a complete, it's like machine guns going off with all of these negative thoughts, with one put down after the other. I remember years ago, years and years ago, I had to go to, uh, this is just such a bad thought, but I was pregnant with my daughter Caroline, and I had to go to my husband's Christmas party, 7 months pregnant. And I remember just feeling just so big and so whatever. And I had this dress on. I remember it was black. And I remember it was, it kind of fit. It was a little bit tight around the belly. I'd bought it, you know, uh, like a month earlier. And when I put it on, well, if you're pregnant, you know what it is. Your breasts are large, your stomach is large, everything about you is, whatever. And I had gained 50 pounds with this 52 at the very end, but a lot of weight with this pregnancy. I was on bed rest, and, I was, let's just say that I was comforting myself with a ton of Pepperidge Farm, a boatload of Pepperidge Farm cookies. I was all about that. Ugh, can't even think about them now. Gross. But I remember walking into this Christmas party, and all these women, my husband at the time worked for a very high-end development company, and all these women were gorgeous, thin, beautiful. Everybody had on gorgeous cocktail dresses. It was held in this swanky place. And I just felt like a complete fish out of water. I mean, I felt like dog food, and these gals were filet mignon, right? That's how the whole thing was, walking in there with my tight dress on, with my big boobs and my big belly, with my belly button sticking out and poking through, and at that time, this is 1989 now. And at that time, pregnant, your pregnancy gear, your clothing and everything like that was more loose fitting. It wasn't as tight as it was. Sorry, I have an itch on my nose there. So I walked in there, and I remember feeling really bad about myself. And I remember being very self-conscious. And I remember the women that were there, and I kept thinking, oh, they're looking at me, and they're thinking, she looks like a beached whale, this, that, and the other thing. And of course they didn't say anything like, oh, you're so beautiful. When are you due? This, that, and the other thing. And, chit chat. And then I remember a couple of other conversations like, so what do you do? What are you going to do when the kid gets here? And some other kind of sort of put downs, like not even looking at me while having a discussion, and just feeling this big. But, when I look back on that now, I realize and recognize I brought a lot of this with me and on myself, because this is not at all what was going on. It was just, I was pregnant. I was glowing. The dress might have been a little bit tight, but who cares? I was the only one that was pregnant there. I could hold it. I could hold my own, but my thoughts were absolutely debilitating. It was my thoughts. It wasn't me. It was my thoughts. Are you feeling me on this? If I had had a different change of heart, if I put it on and went, well, that's a little tight. Boy, look at my boobs. Oh, my belly, it's a little bit tight. But you know what? Hair on point, got the makeup on, and the bangs, completely huge, got the Aquanet. Just do it. Just do it. Enjoy it. Have a fun time at the party, But that's classic bullying. Classic. And look who's doing the bullying. I was doing the bullying on myself. So you know what I say to that? Stop, drop, roll. You are on fire. and we're going to put the fire out. Okay? Viciousness like this toward ourselves or toward anyone is unacceptable, yourself included. It's heinous, it's wrong, and yet so many times it's undetected. It's just under the radar, isn't it? Because that's how stealthy it is. It's like, it's like the Black Hawk kind of a thing. What is that Black Hawk down? Isn't that what it's called? That stealth thing that the radar doesn't even pick it up. That's what it is. That's the self-talk. That's how it takes it down. And we forget that we have a say in what gets said in our heads. We forget that part. There is influence. Yes, society, culture, other people, and more all have influence on our thinking. However, thankfully, we have more influence because we're the ones that are saying it. We're the ones that are hearing it, and we have the ability to do this. So remember earlier this week, we made two important discoveries. I just told you about them. I'm going to say them again because they are this important. Number one is that they're not always necessarily true. Every thought you have is not necessarily true. It's just a thought. It's not like God opening up the heavens, coming down and throwing down some commandments on some stone right in front of you at your feet. It's not that at all. It's a thought. Okay, that's number one. Number two, those thoughts do not have to be obeyed. They don't, because ultimately you have control. Remember? Let's keep going back to that. So to really change them up, first of all, the number one thing you have to do, start questioning them. Is this true? Is this really true? Is this something that I want to believe about myself? Is this something that I want to play in the back of my mind? Is this factual? How does this thought affect me? How does it make me feel? Where'd it come from? And then here's my favorite. Is there a better way for me to think about this? That's a good one, right? How about if we, instead of when it comes up, let it stick out like a sore thumb and say, is there a better way that I can think about this? Or do I just need to dump this thought entirely? Or do I need to say something new instead? Or is this a call to action really about something else? And that's one of the things that I used to help me drop 70 pounds was stop thinking these thoughts about yourself. But if you think, if you need to lose weight and your blood tests are telling you yes, then let's get busy on that. Let's get busy with this weight. What does this mean? What does it look like? How do I need to go about this? Are you feeling me on all of this? Everything we think about is a choice, and these thoughts become habitual. So I have three important things for you to do about this, and then I'm going to close this thing out. But I sincerely hope that you took really good notes all this week because it's going to make a difference. So one thing is that you can think different thoughts. Oh, yes, you can. You can think different thoughts. You're not being held against your will. Nobody's got you held in a basement tied up with duct tape and a gun to your head saying, think these same thoughts, okay? You're not a victim of your thoughts. You are not have to think about these thoughts. There is no one holding a gun to you saying that this has to be doing it. You don't have an angry amygdala who's climbed out of your head and just saying, see here, come with me. We're going to do this. Boom, put them up. It's not like that at all. Your amygdala just is out of control and has been bossing you around all your life. Living on fear, living on risk, saying, oh, it's too dangerous, too hard, too this, that, and the other thing. Everything we think is a choice, and that includes everything that the amygdala is trying to protect us against from. So what can you do about this? I'll tell you the best and easiest thing that you can do is to contrast these thoughts, because I'm going to tell you, probably without fail, is when you say, oh my gosh, look at these thighs. It's not the first time you've ever said that. Put your hand up if you've said anything awful about your body. And put your pinkies up if you are the one who have said this on repeat. And think about it this way. Have you ever just thought about the fact that it just kind of goes on in the back of your head? Have you ever thought about the fact that oftentimes you don't even think about it, you just feel bad and you can't think about why am I feeling bad? And then you realize that it's these thoughts, one after the other after the other. Contrast them and write down your horrible thoughts with something else. Look at those thighs. Yeah, look at these thighs. These thighs are attached to these legs that have held me up all my life. These thighs are a blessing. I'm grateful for them. And if you need to, I even said this, but so, this is one of mine, but I love these little tiny cards that you 3x5 cards that you can buy. Make flashcards if you need to, but make this work. Make this something that you do. Make this something that is a part of your daily life. I will change my thoughts. I will change my thoughts. Contrast them, write them down, create flashcards if you need to, but don't allow your amygdala run off with your life. Okay? Third thing, and the last, don't fake it. Instead, make it. You've heard fake it till you make it. That's all pretend. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all garbage because that's not the way it happens. The way that it happens is to be effective and not a phony. I'm not calling you to pretend. I'm not calling you to fake it till you make it. I'm not calling you to all of this. What I am calling you to is the truth. This is where you are. This is where you want to be. Now let's start building a bridge to get there. And you can, is the whole thing. The whole thing. You can be effective with your thoughts when you trade them in for more effective thoughts. Not even just trade them in, but destroy the old ones and build the new ones. You have absolute 100% control and capacity for this work. And it needs to be the first and foremost thing that you do if you find yourself on repeat, doing the same old thing, living the same old Groundhog Day over and over again, feeling like something's just not quite right, feeling uneasy and putting yourself down and all of the rest of that. That is all 100% because of your thoughts. Are you ready to flip them? Are you ready to create the life that you want, the vibrancy that you want? If that's the case, then you have to evaluate your thoughts. That's the first thing that you need to do. And remember, your thoughts aren't necessarily true and they don't need to be obeyed. You can tell Amy or whatever you've named your amygdala to take a seat and to shut the heck up. And furthermore, you can build more helpful, effective thoughts. Now repeat after me. 1, I am not available any longer for thoughts that try to hold me captive and take me down. Not available. Not available. And number 2, that I am available for the things that hold me up, that help me create the vibrant life that I want to live. That's all. You can do that. You can do that right now. You can do that today. You can have the life that you want to have. You can be available for it. You can get the abundance of it. And you can, at any bend in the road, make a decision for yourself. And that's always going to involve new and different, appreciative, supportive thoughts. What are you going to be available for? The good stuff or the same old stuff? It's your job. It's your job to figure that out. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I enjoyed this week. I hope it was helpful for you. Peace be with you. See you Monday.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.